All right, everyone. Well, I am so excited on the show today. We have one of my dear friends and colleagues and just a total badass when it comes to all things business, funnels, online stuff. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. And we have Emily E on the show today. And Emily is based out of Seattle. She's a wife, she's a beagle mom, and of course, she loves long walks on the beach. She's obsessed with beach vacations. But what I love the most about Emily is her story. She actually grew up like she worked in MLM space forever and was in the top 1% of that business and left because of burnout. Fast forward, she completely did a 180 and scaled her online business like super fast. And now she specializes in funnels, Facebook ads, and all the things. And this is an episode you're not going to want to miss because we're going to dive into the logistics and some of the behind the scenes stuff that usually most people won't talk about and they'll make you pay for your program for. So lots of juice. But first off, Emily, welcome to the show. Tell us anything that we missed about you.
Thanks, Ashley. Oh, this is so fun. No, I think you got the whole thing. I love long walks on the beach, but don't like that sand. So, one of those high maintenance people over here.
I love it. Are you also gluten-free and drink organic kombucha only?
I'm drinking an oat milk latte right now. You're going to die.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much.
I have dairy, just so we're clear. I love cheese, but it was just funny that you asked that when I literally just made myself an oat milk latte.
Is it an oat milk lavender latte? Because that would be even more bougie.
It's not. We aren't in LA, honey. Sorry.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I'm so excited to kind of dive right into it. But tell me more, like what prompted you to do the complete 180 from going from MLM to online business world? I know you, like me, have a crazy, crazy path to how you got here. But for everybody listening that's kind of thinking about maybe changing their niche or whether or not like going and scaling some of their programs is right for them, like what was your story?
Gosh, it's been a wild ride. And, when you put all of your accolades in one little spot, it makes it feel like it happened really fast. But the truth of the matter is, for me, it really was kind of a slow roll. I really thought hard and long about if I wanted to switch directions in my career. I mean, I really thought that I was going to be a lifer in my company. Like, I had a company car. There was no reason why I was going to be leaving. And I did that for 7 years. And that was my first job out of college. And so, I had kind of the slow roll, the slow exit, I guess you would call it, just because I needed to make sure it was the right decision for me. It had to feel right, had to feel right in my gut. And so, I think my transition is a good testament of the awesome people that I have in my corner. My husband and my best friend, Brandy, really, Brandy introduced me to the online world. And then my husband was like, why wouldn't you? But why? He's so logical and I'm so not logical all the time. And so, it's hard to look at something that you've built for the last 7 years objectively. And so I was able to make the switch and it's been really fun. Since I started my online business, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Started from doing all the things to now niching and really finding my space in sales and messaging and launching. But it's been really fun.
I love that so much. And I guess the question and kind of piggyback off of that is what was it that made you finally take that leap? We have a lot of people listening that a lot of them are longtime business owners, but when it comes to the online space and getting started and growing, they're like, oh my gosh, like what is this underground community that I've just discovered? But for a lot of them, there are those thoughts about the messages and the concepts and the things that they had learned from just like you staying in their space for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And then there's a lot of fear of trying something new and stepping out. What kind of helped you cross over that threshold and really embrace the online space and kind of pick a niche too?
So I think when you just start small, you realize where your strengths are. I remember when Brandy was like, Emily, you should give this a try. And why not try Pinterest management? Like I didn't go through the deep, dark Google rabbit hole of like, when you Google your doctor Google symptoms. Like I didn't Google how to make money from home. I wasn't searching for anything. And so I was trusting my friend, and I decided right then and there that it wasn't necessarily going to be something that made me $1 million. Right. And so then when I figured out that not only did I like it, but I was also really good at it, that's when the train started to roll. And so I think for me, I had to go into it with absolutely zero expectations of knowing that I already have a successful business. I am already a success. Trying this new thing is not going to define whether I'm a success or not. And I think that's how I've made decisions, even in my online business too, because for a very long time, I only offered one-to-one services. And then moving into the course creation space, I'm doing the same thing. My services are my bread and butter, but I want to try out this other thing. If it doesn't go well, it's okay.
I love that. And we are going to talk about that now because I'm super excited, because I'm assuming this other thing is tiny offers. Am I correct?
Yes.
I love it. So tiny offers, pocket products. I mean, I'm trying to think of a name that I haven't heard them called, like a million names, self-liquidating offer, self-liquidating fund. Yeah. There's so many code words and different. Yeah. I don't even know. I'm sure there's one that I missed on there, but for anybody that's listening, that's like, what the heck are they talking about? How would you explain a tiny offer, an SLO funnel, or a pocket product, or any name that I missed?
So, when you're scrolling on Facebook and you see the teeny tiny little sponsored little, spot right there at the top, you click on it. And if it's a $7 product, a $27 product, even a $47 product, it is what we view as a tiny offer. Bonus points if when you go to check out, they're like, oh, do you want this other $17 thing? And then you say yes. And then they're like, oh, well, because you said yes to me twice already, you definitely want this thing for $297, right? And so then you're scrolling on Facebook, and that scroll on Facebook just cost you $300. So, so for those of you who don't know, it's a small offer that you put out there, typically with the intention of paying for or recouping some of your advertising costs. But as we all know, that may or may not happen. So, but it's a tiny offer. It's exactly how it sounds. It's a small thing that you're selling.
I love that. And they exploded. I know that they've existed for a while. I don't know about you though. The first time I really saw tiny offers excel, I know Russell Brunson with ClickFunnels has been the king of them. And then more recently, Allie Jerk has been the one that I've been following, who she is like the queen. So if you're looking for, I don't know her personally, but I'm telling you, if you're looking for somebody, or if you're like, ooh, that sounds interesting, she is definitely the one to watch. I would say that she's an overnight success because I know that she'd probably been working her tail off for years. But she's kind of been one of the first people that I've watched notably really do an excellent job of just kind of getting over that hump and then scaling that offer. So let's talk about why somebody would want to create a tiny offer. Like, tell me more about what you think. Like, at what point in your business would you be like, oh, I want one of those, instead of just getting shiny objects and being like, yeah, I'm going to do a course, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do a tiny offer and all the things. So at what point does it make sense to start thinking about a tiny offer?
So I would say that there are two schools of thought in this area. There's the, I don't have a list. I am brand new to this space. I don't really know what I want to sell yet. And so why not create just something small? Like, hey, that's exciting. It's just tiny, right? Okay. Then there's this other human over here who already knows what they want to sell. They already know what they want to be known for, where they want to live, where they want to plant their flag. And then they create a tiny offer they already have maybe a small list or an email list existing, and they want to increase their sales on the front end to then filter people into the other products that they already have existing. And there's lots of gurus out there who will tell you that if you don't have a list, then start with a tiny offer. It's small. I don't happen to think that way, because here's the thing. If you don't know what you want to be known for, then why are you creating this like tiny offer? Tiny offer, the word is so misleading because it really takes an enormous amount of work to put it together. I would argue that an SLO funnel is the hardest funnel to put together than just throwing together a sales page and putting your like $400 or $500 offer out there. And not to mention, it's going to take a lot longer to get your money back.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I've always said you're exactly right. There's really nothing tiny about a tiny offer, except for the fact that it's like a micro commitment. And so I know with all my Sandler training in sales world, we call it a monkey's paw. It's like that little bit of a commitment to ask for something bigger later. But when it comes to the world of offers, I've always heard it said, and I don't know who coined this rule, but it's a good one to go by, is that the more valuable and the more expensive the offer, the least amount of content and fluff and crap that should be inside, because the concept that you're teaching should be so valuable that it's so specific and so niche down. Like example being a tiny offer that I would see typically, right? Let's say it's a social media manager. It's usually this crazy bundle and it's like, I'll just give you mine, for instance, right? It's a bunch of amazing stuff, but there's nothing small about it because I've got my calendar in there. I've got my templates in there. I've got all my copy and my caption formulas in there. I've got like 3 different live trainings in there. There's like 10 things in there and there's nothing tiny about it. It's taken me time to create all of those things. But the idea is to make it such a no-brainer that when somebody's scrolling, they're like, oh my gosh, I can get Ashley Slayer social for $27. Well, screw it. Yeah, I'm just going to try that and see, because worst case scenario, I don't like it. I just got like 50 Canva graphics and all these captions for $27. So I'll just buy it. Right. But you're exactly right. There's nothing tiny about it. So when, and I can think of some examples too, but what are some examples of somebody that should not basically shouldn't consider a tiny offer right now, and what should they do instead?
If you have no list, if you've created nothing yet, do not start with a tiny offer. If you have no ascension model, nowhere for people to go once, no additional thing for them to say yes to you on after they buy the tiny offer, do not make the tiny offer. Make your forward $100 course, run a founding member benefit to a course or membership that you want to create, and then start building your tiny offer out. The thing with these middle level offers is you don't have to build anything out before you invite people in. But with a tiny offer, you have to build out every single little piece of it, because it has to be all delivered to that person within minutes of them saying yes to you. And so there's really no testing involved until you've put it out there and you've tested it for a month, 3 months, and it doesn't work. And you're mad because you spent all this time on it and it's not even an offer that's converting, right? Or resonating with your audience. I've seen this time and time again. I call it the emotional cycle of the SLO offer, because 1 week you're profitable and 1 week you're not profitable, because there's such a it's tiny, right? There's a tiny margin for error on it, tiny margin for profitability. But if you have something to upsell people into where your tiny offer isn't just fully loaded on the $300 cart value of your tiny offer, but your $10,000 lifetime value of a customer, that changes things drastically.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And even from an agency's perspective, and because we've run ads for so many different types of clients, I know for anyone listening, we won't even take on a client with a tiny offer until they've proven it, for that exact reason. And I've had a few conversations like that lately where the person just assumes that because they created this product, because they think it's valuable, because it's got all this good stuff in there, they just assume it's going to sell. And that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes, think about when you go to the dollar store and you're like, wow, there's all this stuff, but it's basically all, it's not, but like, you're like, do I really need it? Oh, I'll just throw it back on the shelf kind of a thing. But when it comes to your tiny offer, what I see happens so often is people come, they just assume that paid ads and the funnel can fix everything, but they're forgetting one major piece of the equation. It's the most important one. In order for us to create amazing ads or a really great funnel, the offer has to sell. and you don't know that with a tiny offer. And it may be the messaging, it may be your landing page isn't converting. But the bottom line, and it may just be a bad offer. I would kind of joke, I use this Snuggie as a horrible example, or Crocs, because even though they were popular 10 years ago, doesn't mean that people are going to buy them now. And so you and I could make the bougiest, prettiest, most gorgeous, appealing graphics, copy that just is just to die for. And people still wouldn't buy Crocs or Snuggies because they just don't want to buy Crocs or Snuggies. And by the time that they've gotten those products out to the market, the needs have changed. And I think that is a piece that we missed. So, and you mentioned kind of a founding member's launch model and doing something else. What would you tell somebody listening that's like, oh crap, I was going to do a tiny offer and now I'm like, oh no, what should I do instead? What would you tell them? Where would you tell them to begin? Like step by step, what should they maybe redirect their attention to kind of build instead of doing this tiny offer thing right now?
I would look at what you have created for your tiny offer and what you can add to it to make it more valuable, to make it more irresistible, and then live launch it. There is nothing that shines the light on your product like live launching. It's like putting your product in an incubator. And so I know that these evergreen models are so sexy right now. It's like, I want it to be evergreen all day, like Christmas, right? But it takes just as long, it takes longer to tweak an evergreen funnel because you're changing one thing and then you're seeing if it works. You're waiting for a week and then you're doing it again. Whereas if you just take everything you got and you put it into 2 weeks, it might suck for 2 weeks, but then you have so much data and you might find, like I just had a client who I launched with, we did her first launch with ads and she found out that she had a fabulous converting offer. But in that, she also found out that there might be a piece of this course that she put together that might even be more profitable. And so you learn because you're actually talking to your human. I think that's the biggest thing is go talk to your human. You don't necessarily even have to live launch in order to do that, but like go talk to the people who are going to be buying your product so you can see what they actually want so that you can include that in your offer.
I love that. And I just think that's huge. And the live launch or the founding members launch method, I just think that's ingenious because I know for me, when I launched my membership, what I expected and thought my people were wanting, even though that what they told me is kind of what I created. Once we got inside and once they started purchasing, I started to realize, oh, it's almost like we're speaking a different language. They think because they're coming and telling me because of what they've heard that they need social media, but what they're asking me for, and your job as the creator is almost to translate it for them and to act as a translator. No, what they actually needed was visibility help because they didn't need great content yet because they weren't ready for having amazing social media content because they didn't have enough people even seeing their stuff. And so I could have gone and created the most beautiful, gorgeous, all the social media stuff in the world. But if their goal was to get clients and to get more people to engage with them, and I just showed them how to create content, well, even though they said that's what they wanted, that's not actually what they were asking for. And sometimes our prospects and our clients don't know what they need. They know what they want and they know what it should look like, but they're still a little bit off. And so our job is to kind of translate that solution for them. So with that being in mind, what would you say is probably the easiest method for somebody? Let's say we have an interior designer that's listening and she's with everything that's happened over 2020. She's kind of decided, okay, I'm going to go from not only just doing like decorating and design and then doing online consults too. I want to create some kind of an offer or something. I don't know what it is yet to try to continue to build an online audience. What would you tell somebody like that they should do, or where to even start?
Great question. I would recommend that they look at first, who do you want to sell to? Do you want to sell to other interior designers and teach them how to be as successful as you have been in interior design? Or so like business to business, right? Or do you want to be business to client, B2C? Do you want to talk directly to the customer and teach them how to DIY their own interior design? Everyone's at home right now, even still. So how can you make your space as inviting as possible? Organizing is still all the rage right now. So how could you incorporate some things that are maybe still a hot button for people, but that also speak to your human? But I would figure out first, who are you talking to? Are you talking to the interior designer, or are you talking to the stay-at-home mom who wants to incorporate more design into their house? And then go from there. Do you want it to be a course? Do you want it to be a membership that someone pays for monthly? Or do you want it to be a group coaching program? So you take 6 weeks and you overhaul something within that person's house. I think if you can narrow down those two things, what you want to sell, like in the vehicle in which you want to sell it and who you're talking to, then it's going to be a lot easier to figure out what to sell.
I love that. And that's a really good distinction. If you're trying to figure that out, feel free to email us or message us or kind of comment and get in touch, because that's a distinction. The B2B and the B2C distinction is one that people miss. We talk so much about your ideal client, and the whole idea of creating any successful offers to work backwards. And the popular word is reverse engineer it. Most people start with the outcome. They start with posting on social media. They start with their list, and then they start creating the offer, but they've done it all backwards because they could have been attracting the wrong audience all along. But the B2B and the B2C difference, I mean, that's a drastic difference in the positioning and the way that you're going to communicate, and also the overall pricing. Because if you think about it, most people, if they're a B2B, they're going to have like a way with their business to be able to pay for that, or it's going to be a tax write-off or incentive, or there's some other benefit. Most people are more likely to invest in their business than they would in themselves, especially women, right? Stereotyping maybe, but we see it time and time again. And it just comes down to like, it's going to be a lot easier to let's use counselors. It's going to be a lot easier to train a counselor in something they can directly write off and use in their business than it is to get somebody to pay one-on-one for mental health coaching. And it's not saying that it's still a viable offer. It absolutely is. And it's one that people should pay more attention to. But then the positioning is going to be drastically different, because now we're talking to consumers that need to recognize and make sure that they know that their mental health is a priority and that they know that they're worth investing in. Whereas a therapist is coming from a completely different mindset where they already know absolutely people need to be investing in this. And yes, I need this EMDR training or whatever it is to kind of grow my practice. Whereas the consumer's like, well, I don't know, it's not that bad. They're just in a completely different frame of mind. So I love that. And so if you're struggling with that, be sure to comment, send us a message, and we can direct you for some resources on that. But let's talk about our friends here that are ready and they're like, okay, I've got a list. Like, I've been in the game for a while. Like, I've got a course, like I've done some launches. Like, now I'm ready. I think I'm ready to introduce an SLO funnel. Where do we start? And I know that this is your bread and butter, and y'all, Emily builds these all the time. They're just amazing. Like, usually people come to me and they're like, can you run ads for my SLO funnel? And I'm like, not until they've seen Emily, which has happened a few times this week. So tell us, what does that look like when they're ready to build their SLO funnel? What do they do first? Like, what does that process look like?
Okay. So again, we're starting with the end in mind, right? So we know who we're talking to. We know what it is. It's an SLO. It's a tiny offer. Okay. We want to think about what are the juiciest parts of our business, because again, we want this to be a no freaking brainer for someone. Like, why wouldn't I say yes to this? And so an SLO has typically 3 pieces that make up its overall cart value. It has its main offer that is somewhere between $27 and $47. It has what's called a bump order, which is like the target checkout line, where it's like, oh, do you need this? Yep, definitely need that. That one is typically anywhere between 17, 27, 37. I mean, it can really be kind of anywhere in there, but you definitely want to stick to 7s. And then it has what's called an OTO, or a one-time upsell. And that is shown to the person after they've already checked out. It's typically a little bit more expensive, and it's typically sold mostly over video. So you would hop on a video and say, congratulations, I'm so excited that you got my offer. I can't wait for you to check out all the Canva templates. You're going to absolutely love it. But wait, your order's not quite complete. And then you insert an offer that's anywhere from 97 to, I'd say, 297. I mean, you can really play with the pricing on your OTO, but it has 3 different pieces. So I would think about what might you want to include in the 3 different pieces. And then from an actual building of this funnel standpoint, start in the middle of your sales page. Do not try to start at the top and just type all the way down to the bottom until you're done, because you will get stuck, you will get frustrated, and then you will call me and you will be like, Emily, I don't know how to do this. I'm stuck. I'm not a good copywriter. And it's like, well, you might not be a good copywriter, but you're also, again, not starting with the end in mind. So start in the middle. Start in the spot where it says introducing your irresistible offer, and then itemize out every point and every bonus that you're going to include in that offer. Lesson 1, workshop 1, workshop 2, workshop 3. Build your value stack first, and then go back up to the top of your page and think about what benefits does your client need to know before they purchase the product. But I think you'll get a lot less stuck if you start in the middle.
You're pretty much describing me, just so you know. It was a very accurate description of me writing my own sales pages. That's pretty much how it goes. So you hit it on the head. Oh my gosh, I love it. So if you're listening and you're just like, okay, that all sounds great, but like, how the heck do I even write a sales page? We've got some resources for you. So be sure to reach out. We've got some recommendations. Let's say though, you're listening and you're just like, cool, I have no desire to learn any of that. It kind of sounds like a foreign language. And Emily, why don't you just do it? We're about to wrap up. So tell us where we can find you. And I've got a few more rapid fire questions for you as well. But how can somebody that's like, yeah, it sounds like I'd be a great fit for this, but I don't know what an OTO is or a value stack or an ascension thing. And they're just like, I don't really know. I don't care. Can you just do it for me? Where do we find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on my website at emilye.co/contact, or on Instagram at Emily E. Bergsagel. So that's BERGSAGEL. Thank you to my husband, Brian, for that lovely last name. At least no one will forget it. They might not ever be able to pronounce it, but they won't ever forget it. So
I would just call you Emily Berger.
Emily Berger. That's me. People used to call me like Burger Bagel. That was nice.
Burger Bagel.
Like, oh, good.
Burger Bagel. I love that. Oh my gosh. And yes, seriously, if you've got questions or you're just like, I just want somebody else to build my tiny offer, like, y'all, Emily's freaking amazing. I send so many clients her way because I'm just like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. And I'm sure if you, again, if you want to build your own tiny offer or your own offer, like reach out. We've got a ton of resources that we can connect you with. But if you're like me and you get started started and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is a full-time job, like I just did, building my own SLO funnel, be sure to reach out to Emily and connect with her. As you can tell, like we pretty much just taught a course on SLOs and funnels today. And she's got a wealth of knowledge that she can help better direct you as well. So a few more questions for you, Emily, before we end the show, because of course this is the Marketing Hacks and Mindset Shifts podcast. So we got to get into the mindset stuff a little bit. Tell me this, like, what is for somebody that's like, oh my God, this just sounds amazing, but I don't think I can do it. I don't know if I'm good enough, blah, blah, blah. All the imposter syndrome what's the best sales, business, or marketing advice that you'd kind of give them to kind of combat that? Or maybe some that you've even given yourself during those times when you're like, should I really have an SLO funnel? Am I really good enough for this? Like those kind of thoughts.
So I think this is where it's a really good space to sit and actually think, is this shiny object syndrome, or are you just putting undue stress on yourself for something that sounds really great, but really is going to take you off course of what your end goal is in your business? Again, reverse engineer. Where do you want your business to be in, let's say, 2 years? I think the 5-year, 10-year thing is kind of bogus. Like, I don't really know. I don't even know where I want my business to be in 5 years, but in a couple years, at the end of this year, I could tell you, right? It's not as much of a jump. And so where do you want your business to be? How do you want to feel in your business? And does building a course or membership fit that? And then I just wouldn't try to do it alone. That's the other thing is, hire someone to help you with part of it, or join a course or a membership on how to build out courses and memberships. It is so valuable to be able to talk to people and see what they're doing and bounce ideas off of them. And so I think the biggest thing is reverse engineer it, but also don't try to do it alone. And some of those creepy, like weird thoughts that come in, they all start to go away when you're crystal clear on where you're going.
I love that. And what mindset shift do you think needs to happen to get to that point and how do you think that I really believe our mindset just really plays an effect on the offers that we create, what our pricing looks like. What advice would you give to try to start reconditioning that change of thought? And then any examples to how that has shifted the trajectory of your business as well?
Yeah. So I think you need to remember that other people don't know what you know. Yes. And that you really are an expert in what you're doing, but because you see it every day, you are immune to the fact, you think that everyone can do what you do, but no one can do exactly what you do, how you do it. And, I think that sometimes this came in my own business. Back in September, I was almost ready to drop kick funnels completely. I was like, I love them, but they take way too much time. And I was working with a needy client at the time. And so I just decided that if I was going to do this again, that it was going to be double the price to work with me. I was like, this is dumb. It's going to be, double. And then the next person said freaking yes. I was like, oh, this is a pricing issue and a what I feel like I'm worth issue. This does not have anything to do with my love or my not love of funnels. And so I think when you move your prices up, the same thing happens. You get a little bit of that, oh, I am good at what I'm doing. It gives you that validation. And so I would figure out how you need to get the validation that you are good at what you're doing. And I honestly think that talking to your people is going to help you the most with that.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's probably some of the best advice. So if you're listening, I hope you're taking notes because that was a gold mine. Anything else? Any other word of encouragement or last bit of advice that you'd want to pass on to somebody that's listening today? There's already been so many amazing nuggets.
I think it's really easy to get bogged down in the details and to start looking, now that you know what tiny offers are, now that you know a little bit more about the online world, you're going to start seeing these things everywhere. And so start making yourself a file list of the things that you love. In the online world, we call that a swipe file. But start making yourself a list of things you like about certain pages and what you like about certain offers, but try to completely remove yourself from that equation in thinking, oh no, I could never build something as beautiful as that or as great as that, because I can't spit it out. I don't know.
You're good. I'll pause it.
Try not to get bogged down in the fact of not knowing that, like, you are the expert, you know what you know. And so start making that list, start figuring out what other people in your space are doing, but keep that separate and keep your mind.
Oh my gosh, Emily, I feel like there's already been like a vault of amazing advice and content, but is there any last bit of advice or encouragement that you would give to somebody listening to the show today?
Nope. Just get out there and do it. The best things happen when you just step off the ledge. So consider this me pushing you off the ledge.
I love that. Emily, thank you so much again for coming on the show. I feel like I'm going to be begging you to come back on, and we should just start a whole talk show about all the things funnels and SLOs. Yes. So seriously, thank you so much again. Be sure, if you are listening, to follow Emily on all things social media and stay tuned for all the other juicy tips that she's going to bring your way. All right, everybody. See you next time on the show.